Hey everybody, I'm Sierra.
And I'm Ben.
And welcome to Unsolved Couple, where every week we recap one of the gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved mysteries.
Ben, this is episode number 2 for us.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. If anyone is still listening out there in the world of podcasts, we're excited to have you back.
Yeah, we're so excited.
Okay, so first off the top, how did you feel about this episode in general?
What kind of question is that? It's literally, watching this show is like nails on a chalkboard. It's literally a chore to watch this thing every week.
For the record, people, I've not tied my husband down and forced him to do any of this. You make it sound like you are like blinking for help, like Morse code out into the universe to like rescue you.
No, absolutely not. Definitely not forcing me. But this is, I will say this every time. This is the worst show ever made in the history of what, true crime? Is that what you guys call yourselves?
Yeah.
True crime enthusiast?
Yeah.
It's a chore.
It's a chore. I will be excited for the day when we sit down and you say, actually, I really enjoyed last night's episode.
No.
I'm waiting for that day to happen.
I mean, there is some enjoyment in the fact of it's comical. Like, there is some comical parts of this show. In this episode, it had some good ones.
It did. It gave us... I will say, in this episode, I feel like, even though this is episode number 2, they were scraping the bottom of the barrel to fill their time.
Towards the end, yeah, that last one, I mean, it was, you know, it reminded me of, never mind. It was like it's supposed to be a feel-good story at the end.
I thought
it
was
wasn't
interesting
really a mystery.
Yeah.
It's like, it was like those, when the news actually used to be on television, and at the end they would do like that
story about puppies or something.
Yeah, just something like that's how it felt. So it's like, let's talk about murder and mystery, and then let's give you a feel good story at the end. It just didn't
seem like it fit.
No, it felt a little weird. But obviously we're gonna get to that. But it just felt misplaced. I mean, and it really was. Again, it wasn't a mystery.
Okay, and the other announcement I have for Ben is that I've decided I'm going to try to close out our podcast the same way every time.
Oh.
And you have no idea what that is, right?
No, I don't.
Do you want me to fill you in now, or do you want to go into it?
No, I want to go through this. The whole episode is a mystery.
Okay,
it's going to be a mystery that's going to be solved at the end.
Okay, do you want me to give you a hint?
Nope, I don't want no hints.
Okay. All right, well then I'll kick us off. Okay.
All right, I'm excited.
So this first story, I have
I bet. I can only imagine how you felt about this first story.
Okay, so this is the story of a man named Elmer and a child named Missy.
Melissa. Missy short.
Okay, yeah. So 11 a.m., May 11th, 1987. The police were called to a gas station near Pontiac, Michigan. Once the police got inside the locked gas station, they figured out that there were 2 people missing. So Missy was the employee of the gas station. She was the assistant manager at the time. And Elmer was the gas station courier who would carry about $10,000 in cash. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know what a gas station courier is.
Well, it said he was a courier for the oil company.
Okay.
So, because I thought about this too. It didn't make a whole lot of sense because, I mean, well, we were born in the 80s, so we didn't know exactly how this all transpired in the 80s. But back then, there was no credit cards. Everything was cash.
Yeah.
And
cash or check. That were your options.
so I'm going to guess that was the money that people paid for gas, because as the gas station,
Yeah.
you were making money off of the actual pumping of the gas. Your money was in the store, and that is my guess. I'm sure someone has a better answer for us.
I'm sure.
Here's the thing.
If there
I'm throwing
anyone
guesses out there.
listening to this understands how this worked in the 80s,
So
feel
I'm guessing
free
he's
to reach out
picking
to
up
us.
he's picking up the cash for the oil company that sold the gas at that gas station.
Yeah, that was kind of
'cause-
my assumption, is that he didn't actually work for the station location. He worked for some sort of fuel company that...
We said he made his rounds to all these different places, and they knew his route or that, and this was like towards the end of his route. But that was my guess, because I was trying to figure it out too.
Yeah. So, okay. However, the next day, the police actually found Elmer's body in the woods outside of Pontiac. He had been handcuffed and shot twice in the back of the head.
Dude, that's not just once.
No, this is classic execution style, correct? However, they did not find Missy. And this is
Dun, dun, dun.
at that point, the police start to wonder if she had been a part of this.
Or abducted.
Or, yeah, it said at this point, they jumped to conclusions pretty quickly that she was involved.
I think it's because they'd already knew. I'm sure, I'm going to guess, right at that moment. Because this girl, they said, she was 16 at the time?
Oh, we're going to get into that. Let's go back to 1985.
Best year. That's the best year.
That is the best year.
Yeah.
Yours truly and yours truly were both born in 1985. However, but we're back in the small town of Hancock, Maryland. Missy was the youngest of 4 siblings. She attended the local high school. She was an honor student and a member of my favorite club, the Future Homemakers of America.
I wrote that down because I knew. I was like, oh man, Sierra's going to love that. And, who doesn't want to be a part of Future Homemakers of America?
I took home ec in junior high.
But forget about farmers. Let's do homemakers.
Yeah, no FFA here. This is the Homemakers of America.
Okay, I'll be honest. I've never heard of this group before.
I never have either.
And now I'm pretty interested in
I know.
it. I just want to know what this was about.
Yeah.
What transpired in this group? That's what I want to know.
I would love to know as well. She was also on the JV basketball team, was in the school choir, and according to the vice principal that they interviewed, Missy was in the top 10 of her class. He went on to say that he believed everything was, quote, satisfactory with her and her life. Missy's mom informed us that her daughter was shy.
Okay, but...
Yeah, I got some thoughts too.
I was going to say, can we, the mom... Oh, I got some thoughts.
I got some thoughts. Okay,
right,
so...
I'll let you...
1985, and the 26-year-old gentleman of the story, his name is Jerry. He was out driving around.
This is the best part.
I agree. So he was driving around, and he knocked on the front door of Missy's home and asked Phyllis, the mother, about the ownership of some local land around the home. He explains to her that he was looking to acquire the local land to convert into an orphanage.
What a gentleman. Come on.
Yeah.
You know what? I'll be honest. I've heard a lot of stories in my day. That's a first.
Phyllis, however, was not impressed with this gentleman. She said that he was a smooth talker and she didn't care for his attitude.
Well, then I got some questions for Phyllis.
I as well. Okay, so off the top, before we get into anything at this point, I want to express that Missy at this point, she's 14 years old at this point. And I'd like to point out that makes you a child.
She had to be 14. Yeah.
So Missy is a child at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. However, I'm going to use some of the direct quotes from the show However, I don't agree with a lot of them. I'll give you an example. So from the show, it says, quote, Missy, however, was intrigued by Jerry. Her first glimpse at him was the beginning of a relationship that would change her life forever.
Yeah, but
End quote.
How do you categorize this as a relationship?
So
that's the problem I had when they talked about this. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Like,
so this is what it should say. Missy, however, was intrigued by Jerry. He, in turn, preyed on this and began grooming her, in turn, changing her life forever.
Well, that was the thing that was crazy to me about this story, is that they brush over this like it ain't no thing.
They act like this is a Romeo and Juliet or some sort of
they just act
entangled
like
love
this
story.
Is normal. Like
Yeah.
this was happen.
Yeah.
And then they even like start laying out how he grooms her like it's
Yeah, so I'm going to get into that because, yeah, exactly. So a great example of grooming was shared by one of Missy's friends. Her name was Susie, and she shared with us that Missy liked Jerry a lot because every time he came to visit her, he brought her gifts.
Gifts. Yeah. I was like, red flag.
Red flag. Grooming 101.
Yeah.
Okay. She also went on to tell us that Jerry gave her a lot of attention that she didn't get at home.
Again.
Grooming behavior.
Red flag.
Yeah, exactly. This is a child being groomed by an adult.
A 26-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And she's 14.
14. Exactly.
Like, anyone else concerned? Anyone?
No one. Not even the parents.
Bueller?
Yeah.
Bueller?
Yeah, it's hard because there's a part of me that doesn't want to call the mom out in this situation.
Okay, that's the... Yeah.
But she acts like her daughter was just completely... This was just so caught off guard. She had no idea. But then she goes on and says things that she did know certain things were happening.
She knew she was
completely ignored this.
She knew she was hanging out with this guy.
Yes, absolutely.
She knows, and he keeps coming around.
Yeah.
I mean, they did say, like, she was sneaking out.
Mm-hmm.
She was doing these things, but the mom knows this is transpiring.
Absolutely.
At least, maybe she didn't know the extent of it.
Well,
But
then you're an idiot.
Yeah, but
Why else would a 26-year-old be hanging out with a 14-year-old?
Well, the minute he starts coming around and showing interest in your daughter,
the moment.
Shouldn't, we be squashing that real quick?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
That's part of being a parent. Your job was to protect your daughter. At this point, Missy starts to sneak out of the house to meet Jerry. He also starts to confide with her about his tragic past and how he had had this wife and child who died in a car accident. And they start connecting at this deeper emotional level. On the morning of Tuesday, April 17th, 1986. So April. So
they didn't give the time, but we're now over. We're a year.
Yeah, we're into the next year from when they've met.
At least, or close to a year. So at some time in 1985, this guy shows up and, he's looking
knocks on the door.
Well, he's looking for an orphanage. He wants to start an orphanage because who doesn't?
And then instead,
in a neighborhood,
takes on a child who actually has parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly.
So Missy left home for the day to catch the school bus, as usual, but the bus driver actually reported to the police that he saw her get into Jerry's car.
Yeah.
Again.
Oh. It's different.
I know, different. And I know that's probably not the bus driver's responsibility. Maybe he didn't know who was in the car. I know that when I was in high school, you taking the bus or not was not always super consistent.
Well, I didn't ever ride the bus in high school.
I did from time to time, but it just depended on who.
But kids were catching rides with friends in high school all the time. Like, your friends were picking you up or you were picking them up. So, like, that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. So it turns out that she and Jerry had actually, by the time the police had figured out what was going on, had fled the state. At this point, the reenactment is showing us a very, very cool 1980 something blue car.
No, it's a Pontiac Grand Am. It's awesome.
Okay, I thought you would know what brand or style it was. Yeah.
Oh, man, those things were.
It was a cool 80s car.
Well, yeah, especially because, they were showing the iconic, and I didn't get a good look, but, like the Thunderbird on the hood.
Yeah.
That's cool.
When I saw what Jerry actually looked like.
Oh, okay.
Him and this car don't connect.
Well, whoever played Jerry did not represent him well, okay,
No.
in this show. Because I was actually, this is to the point where we're getting like, they then give, it was later. They give their description, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to get to that, but yeah.
I know, but did you see how much this guy weighs?
Yeah. Yeah, this guy's not a good looking gentleman. Okay, so when I saw him, sometimes when you have like a piece of fruit that you've forgotten about and it kind of starts to like fold in on itself like an apple or something circular and it just kind of starts to like meld into this
it's
weird
like the
distorted.
lemon in the back.
What?
A lemon in the back, Yeah. The skin's all.
I know. That's what he looked like. A piece of fruit that sat out for too long.
And the receding hairline. It was way back.
It was.
For 26 years old.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the other thing. For 26.
Well, he's probably now like 27 or something.
It doesn't matter,
know.
man. This guy. Anyways, before we'd seen his picture, we see a really cool car, and we see this guy that's able to pick up a 14-year-old child. So I'm thinking in my mind, at least, like, it's the 80s. Does this guy got, like, what's the guy with the big mustache that your mom used to have a huge crush on?
Oh, Tom Selleck.
I was expecting.
He still has a mustache, and he's pretty cool, dude.
He's a cool dude. I was expecting this guy to have some sort of 80s charisma like unto that.
Like Tom Selleck.
This guy.
Or like Tom Cruise in Legend.
Oh, Tom Cruise in Legend.
Or Bon Jovi.
I don't like Bon Jovi.
No, not Bon Jovi. What's that guy?
What movie are you thinking about?
That dumb movie that you always want to watch.
Labyrinth?
Yes. It's so terrible.
That was, cover your ears if anyone's hearing this. That was like one of my awakenings in childhood.
That was terrible.
I was like, that Goblin King?
What's his name? His name?
Why can't I think of it right now?
I don't know.
You're putting me on the spot.
I am.
If anyone is listening to this, they're yelling his name.
And they're like, how do you guys not know
I know,
this?
because I was obsessed with him. And this is one of my favorite, like, childhood movies.
I know.
This is actually when we start to get some truth about Jerry's life. His wife and his child actually did not die in a car accident. They were alive and well. Yeah. We never get any follow-up on any of that, but...
David Bowie.
Thank you. Jerry had actually been convicted of malicious assault and grand larceny. He raped his sister-in-law.
I know, that was crazy.
And cut her throat open.
But here's the thing. They didn't say, like, did he kill her?
I don't know. I'm guessing he wasn't charged for murder.
Yeah, but it almost made it out to see like he'd fled that. I don't know if he'd actually
because he was out on parole.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, sorry.
So he was
missed
paroled in January of 1985. So I guess now we have sometime after January 85. So right at the top of 1985 is when he leaves prison and is paroled. And within that year, he meets Missy.
A 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm. A 14-year-old, exactly. So by August 1986, Jerry had moved Missy and their newborn baby.
They just dropped
that in like
bombshell.
this. They're like they're playing house or something into an apartment just outside of Detroit, Michigan. Missy at this time would not share her location with her friends or family. She did become friends with a local woman named Sherry while living in the Springfield Township. Sherry said that she felt like something was off, and she had asked Missy why her and Jerry never seemed to be very affectionate towards each other, or show any signs of PTA. And she told her that Jerry just wasn't an affectionate person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless he wants to have a kid with
Apparently.
you. I just loved how they literally drop that like it ain't no thing.
Oh, and
oh yeah, by the way, they got a kid.
And I don't know if you figured out what happened when she was arrested, but we'll get to that point in a minute. So Missy had actually taken the job as the assistant manager at the Union 76 gas station on Dixie Highway in Waterford Township, Michigan. When she applied for the position, she used the name Melissa Stickland and claimed that she was 19 years old. But in reality, she was actually only 16 at the time. Okay? And yeah, so while working at the gas station, she ended up making friends with Elmer, who had stopped in on a regular basis to pick up cash from the gas station for the gas used. May 11th, 1987, at 11 a.m., customers found that the gas station was deserted after the police arrived. They had found Elmer's car, you were right, so in the parking lot, and the pay office locked, and the safe was left open.
Yeah.
And they estimated that about $10,000 or more was missing. And then 1 p.m. the next day, Elmer's body was found in a marshy field next to the lake in Rose Township, about 20 miles from the gas station.
With 2 bullet holes.
Mm-hmm. The police actually went to Missy and Jerry's apartment at that point and found that it was empty, had been deserted.
So they packed up their stuff and went.
So this is when we enter Detective Sergeant Donald Bailey.
Yeah. I wrote his
And
name.
he had opinions.
I don't blame the guy.
I think he really failed to take into consideration this girl's age.
Yeah, I understand that. But all right, I'll let you.
Yeah,
move forward on
the way
it,
he was talking about Missy really irked me because she's still a child. Now,
but he's also dealing with a guy that has 2 bullet holes in the
absolutely.
back of his
I
head.
don't think that children.
How frustrating! I mean, he's upset. I'd be upset.
I don't think that people under the age of 18 should be exempt from any sort of reprimand on a criminal level for acts committed.
I will say he made a good point later on in the next.
Let us know that the morning after the murders, Jerry and Missy had purchased a truck at a used car dealership, and that Jerry had to leave to go get car insurance, and Missy was left to sit at the station with the salesman for over 2 hours. According to Sergeant Bailey, this is when he thinks that Missy didn't call or ask for any help. And then he goes on to say that Missy and Jerry are both highly dangerous and would likely commit crimes of this nature again.
This is where I understand his theory.
So I disagree strongly with him. We know that Munchausen syndrome by proxy, when people have been kidnapped, they are given lots of opportunities to potentially remove themselves from dangerous situations, and they don't. And in fact, a lot of times they protect their defender. And this was kind of previous to, I think, us knowing a lot more about that. She also had a child. I think there's probably at this point a lot of shame in her life. I don't think that should necessarily be held against her. I mean, the most famous case we know, at least of this happening in our day and age, was Elizabeth Smart. She was asked multiple times if she, was in danger or if, anything, and she defended the gentleman that had kidnapped her. So I don't agree that made her some vixen.
I mean, I will say he was pretty harsh on it. He said that she's just as responsible as Jerry. I disagreed with that. The girl's 16 years old. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she'd been groomed for over 2 years by this man.
But at the end of the
day, had a baby with him.
Yeah, I mean,
at this point in the show, we get a handful of talking heads of people that had known Missy in her life that were actually really surprised to find out that she'd partaken of something like this. It seemed to not be in her character
Yeah, and I mean, I think you could check that up. The guy's now groomed her. I mean, this is what?
2 years.
Yeah, for 2 years, this guy's had her under his control.
Yeah, I mean, he's isolated her.
And groomed her. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that is technically where the original broadcast ended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In this episode, we do get an update. And then I did some more research. Mm-hmm. Okay. So within minutes of the broadcast, 20 viewers of a small town in a rural area of Moose Lake, Washington.
Moses Lake, Washington.
Oh, Moses Lake. Excuse me. Moses Lake, Washington called the police to say that they recognized Missy and Jerry. 7 hours later, on February 6th, 1988, at 5:30 in the morning, the local police arrested a 5-month pregnant Missy.
Oh, she was pregnant again. They didn't say that.
And so that's the other thing, too, that Unsolved Mysteries doesn't tell you that at this point, she was 5 months pregnant.
With the second one.
With a second child in 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they'd been on the run for a little while.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's 1988.
Yeah. So
this is in 3 years then, technically.
Yeah. And I want to say, I think when they first brought up that they were living where they were living, what was it, Michigan? Yeah. That kid they said it was like a 1-year-old or something like that. So, I mean.
Yeah, if you do the math, that makes you even sadder.
Well, I think I was doing that when I was thinking. I was like, okay, so this is 1987 and she has a 1-year-old. That means she had the kid in 1986, which means
immediately
she got
upon
pregnant
meeting her.
in 1985. She was 14, 15 when she got pregnant.
Yeah, which meant that immediately upon meeting them, he had gotten her to the point where he had that's rape.
Yes, 100%.
That's, well, let's call it what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
A child under 18 cannot consent to that kind of relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's messed up. But yeah, I will say, they said it only took within 7 hours of that episode airing.
Yep.
They were in custody.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they even said that they saw the episode.
Yeah, so that's which I think is funny because at the very beginning of Unsolved Mystery, the host talks directly to Missy. Or says, like, if Missy is watching this or something like that, he makes a comment. And then so for it to turn out that they actually were watching it.
Well, I think it's funny. It just goes to show you, because this aired, in 1988, I think is when it was originally aired, that there was so little on television.
That's your assumption, not that people liked this program? That no one liked this felt program. That it was like, well, we can watch this or the news.
That was probably your options.
No, there was a few more channels than that.
No, you had NBC, CBS, and ABC.
And Unsolved Mysteries.
Which was on one of them. I don't know which one it was on.
But it worked. This was the allure. You always ask, what was the point of watching this in that day and age? Because you couldn't do a lot of research afterwards, but I swear that people watched this because the off chance. I mean, this is a small little town in the middle of nowhere, Washington. Can you imagine when their pictures came up? People were like,
I can imagine that place. Oh God.
That was the talk of the town. I bet to this day, that's still the most notorious thing that's ever taken place there.
I'm sure it's up in some restaurant.
I'm sure it is.
In that town.
You could probably do a Google Maps tour of whatever took place there.
Yeah. I mean, I bet whatever officer arrested him, that was his career.
He gets free pie at the local
diner.
Exactly.
Free coffee and pie, I just thought it was funny. It was like, of course they were watching because it was probably the only thing on television for people to watch.
Jerry went on to claim that he and Missy had left Maryland only because she was unhappy at home and they did not get along with her parents.
His interview was awesome.
Oh, it was great.
It was awesome.
He also claimed
he does get to interview a little bit.
That he was just lonely when he met her and just wanted to be friends.
Friends?
Yeah, just friends. But as he listened to her, he started to care about her. And that he didn't treat her like a typical, quote, teenager. Well, no kidding. You
Dude,
didn't
he
treat her
raped
like...
her.
Yeah, you raped her. You didn't treat her like a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get that.
You had a kid with her.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, we know you didn't treat her like a teenager, dude.
Yeah, I know.
You're a
you got
criminal.
that loud and clear.
I mean, there's a whole nother child that shows us you didn't treat her like a teenager.
Still while she's under the age of 18.
Well, yes.
Exactly. So, and he also claimed that he was innocent.
Oh, that was the best part.
Oh.
And all they got is circumstantial evidence. I'm like...
Circumstantial evidence is technically
It's like a lot of people
evidence.
have gone to jail for circumstantial evidence.
That actually is one of the big things it gets, especially in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm like, pretty sure you can still go to jail for that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, last time I checked. So on February 12th, 1988, Missy and Jerry were extradited to Michigan to stand trial for armed robbery, kidnapping, and murder. In March, kidnapping and murder charges against Missy were dropped in exchange for her testimony against Jerry. She was freed on bond and returned to her parents' home. By August 1988, when Jerry was on trial for the armed robbery, the kidnapping and the murder, not statutory rape, but it was a different time back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised.
I mean, I guess... No, I don't know.
Yeah.
The guy's going to jail for the rest of his life.
I get it, but let's call a spade a spade.
But yeah, I mean, let's at least acknowledge the other elephant in the room. Like, we got a murder. That's a pretty big elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. But then there's this other one. I mean, like, what crime did this guy not check
commit.
off?
Yeah.
You know, like...
Yeah, so Misty testified that she actually helped plan the robbery, but initially knew nothing about the murder. She said that Jerry had often talked about robbing Elmer and that his original plan was to handcuff her and Elmer together, take them to a remote area, hit Elmer over the head, and then rape her. Yeah, this is what she testified to, that was their original plan. So let's say they'd never caught Jerry. She would have been victimized in that way.
She could have claimed.
Elmer was the one who was murdered. She was sexually assaulted or raped. And then the burglary took place. If they never found anybody, then she would have been, quote unquote, a victim in the situation as well. Okay. So they would have never suspected her. Ultimately, Jerry was found guilty of murder, kidnapping, and robbery, was sentenced to 2 life terms without the possibility of parole. Missy pled guilty to armed robbery in a juvenile court, so she was able to be prosecuted as a child.
Yeah.
Which you and I both have had many conversations about.
Yeah, we've had long conversations about this.
I really, really struggle even with violent crimes that anyone under the age of 18 has ever tried as an adult.
She only did 7 months.
I actually tried to do some research.
I was going to say, did you dig into like what happened to her?
I tried. I checked Facebook, Instagram, Twitter to see if she had any sort of...
I'm going to guess she doesn't have any. Okay, but let's be clear. This isn't a mystery. I mean, maybe it was in 1980. Here's the thing. It wasn't even a mystery. You know what this was? This was America's Most Wanted. That's what this was.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say, where is the mystery in this other than just Missy and Jerry being missing?
And here's the thing. They even, like, say it in the beginning. Like, we're looking for these people. Like, they literally say they're just trying to track these 2 people down. They're
okay, fair.
For murder.
Fair point. This should have been on America's Most Wanted.
I don't know when America's Most Wanted came out.
I don't know
either. It might have been the 90s.
Maybe this was the idea for America's Most Wanted.
It probably was.
Yeah.
So, but I will say this, okay? The scenery was way better. He was walking through the woods in the trench coat. Mm-hmm.
And he had a different color trench coat on.
I know he did have a black one on.
He had a black trench coat on. I was really upset
about that. Why? You can't just go from,
the khaki one comes back.
I know it comes back, but
They were just trying it out.
This one starts on June 14th. 1979 in Garland, Texas. Okay. It says outside of Dallas. I say 1900. but 7 p.m. at night.
We all know how I feel about military time.
Yeah, it's the best kind of time.
It makes no sense.
It makes much more sense than...
No, this seems like the Nate Bargatze, George Washington skit conversation we're having.
No, that one is funny.
But this is like, yeah.
This makes perfect sense.
No.
Okay. I'm trying to get back on track.
Okay, here.
Okay. I'm trying to tell the story of Michael Scott Martin. Okay. That's right. You heard that right. Michael Scott Martin. Okay. And it gets better later.
I know.
With that. So at 1900, 7 p.m. at night, a man walks in to a gas station, and pulls a gun. And he robs the gas station. The gas station attendant is named Doyle. Mm-hmm. That's the only name they give him and he wants to stay anonymous. Fair. Okay.
Yeah. He's 18.
He's not the problem in this story. Mm-mm. Okay. He says that the man tells him like he's going to kill him. He threatens his life. He's waving a gun around. He's waving a gun in his face. Mm-hmm. And he robs him of $400. Yeah. Okay. Which I bet in 1979.
Dang it.
That's a lot. You didn't do the inflation.
I forgot to adjust it. Because then I could make another
sweet guess and guess it right on.
Dang it, Kate. Next time.
All right. Whenever there's money, we got to do the inflation. And then I'll give it a guess.
And you'll give it a guess.
Each time. All right. Yeah. So, he's robbed $400. He steals Doyle's car and leaves the scene. Okay. Well, a man named Michael Scott Martin is shortly arrested for this crime.
Yeah, very quickly.
Very quickly arrested for this crime, charged, and convicted of this. That's how they put it out. Like, that's literally how Unsolved Mysteries puts it out there. Mm-hmm. So Michael Scott Martin, awesome part is they interview him, and here's the mystery. Michael Scott Martin claims to be innocent.
Yeah, right off the bat.
He's saying, I did not do this 100%. So we get a little background on Michael Scott Martin. Michael Scott, he is 26 years old. Mm-hmm. And 7 months prior to this gas station robbery, him and a friend are in a supermarket, drunk, walking around. I mean, he admits he's intoxicated.
Yeah.
And everyone else that's there states he's intoxicated.
It was obvious.
Yeah. And he's eating a Polish sausage, grabs a Polish sausage, and starts eating it.
My question was like, these the little like Vienna
I have no
sausages,
idea.
Or are they like the big?
I don't know. It's 1979.
The ones that are swimming in that broth at the gas station.
I don't know. It says it's not a gas station. That's
what my thought was. Is that
it doesn't make a whole
lot
of
sense. This guy finds a
sense.
random sausage of some sort, and he's eating it because he's drunk walking through a grocery store.
Might have been a little high. Had the
yeah,
munchies.
We don't know.
Had a little bit of the munchies. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, they are going around grabbing food and they're eating it. So the store manager comes out and says, "Hey, bro. One, you need to pay for that, and two, like, you can't keep doing that." And they start getting belligerent.
Yeah, there's an argument ensues.
Yeah, they're ensuing this argument with the manager and the employees. So the manager then says, "Don't go anywhere. I'm calling the police." And he says, "No, I ain't sticking around for the police." And they're like, "No, you're going to stay here for the police." So
what I do find interesting is at this point, according to both sides, he throws a handful of cash down and says, "That's more than enough."
That's how it was reenacted.
When I read through it, that they both say that he threw some money down. So,
okay, but this is the 70s, right? Like,
yeah.
Nowadays, that would be enough. People would just be like, "Dude, go." Like,
yeah,
'cause they want to avoid this.
So
right?
another quick dive into Ben's past. You worked loss prevention.
Yeah, I work loss prevention.
And I worked at the Gap. So there's the difference between us. So I helped people buy clothes. When I worked at the Gap, even if we witnessed somebody taking something, I mean, you've got 8 girls on a shift at the mall. We were not allowed to engage with shoplifters at all in any way, shape, or form because it put us too much at high risk. And you worked at a department store as loss prevention, and you guys were the only ones allowed. And you worked at a much bigger department store. Was it 2 stories?
Yeah.
It was huge.
It was big.
And the employees could call you guys and say that they had something was happening of some sort, but you guys were the only ones allowed to engage with those people.
Yeah, but I mean, like if someone had, I guess I had an instance where like a couple kids, they grabbed some food and were just going around eating it. If they had then just walked up and paid, we would have just whatever, dude. I don't care.
It wasn't worth your time.
Here's the thing. I don't understand. I don't understand why
this escalated.
If they did throw money down, why they didn't just be like, yeah. But like I said, I think now like there's a lot people, stores especially, try to avoid confrontation. I don't think stores back then, they were like, I don't think so. This is our store, and ain't happening. That's my guess. The manager's like, I don't think so. You can't just walk in here, be drunk, eat our stuff, get belligerent, and then think you're going to throw money and get out of here. Right? That's my guess. I'm throwing a guess out here. But it escalates quickly. The guy pulls out a knife. That's where I'm like, okay, this got out of hand.
Yes, Michael.
And it gets out of hand.
Michael Scott takes it to the next level.
Yeah, he pulls out a knife and threatens them like, I ain't waiting around for the cops, whatever. He goes out to his car, which then the employees follow him out of some sort. It doesn't get into the details. He then reaches into his car, pulls out a gun, and fires the gun above their heads.
What did that make you think of, Ben?
It made me think that this just got crazy real fast.
Well, I remember one time that I was given some advice from a political leader.
Fire to blast. I like that song.
That's
a great
exactly.
song.
I started laughing out loud. So, President Joe Biden, he wasn't president at the time, so it would have been
vice president.
Vice President Joe Biden.
We're
when he was talking about,
but it's great.
When he was talking about gun violence, suggested that there was absolutely no reason for people to have a massive amount of guns, let alone any sort of ARs.
Buy a shotgun.
That you just needed to own a shotgun.
Buy a shotgun.
Buy a shotgun. And if you hear something that makes you concerned or worried,
just step out on your porch.
Step out on your balcony and fire 2 blasts into the air.
If you want, I'm not advocating left, right, or center.
Nope.
But if you want a good laugh, just go to YouTube and Google Joe Biden shotgun song.
Yeah, we won't even get into
just
the safety concerns of firing bullets up into the air.
I'm going to tell you, don't do that. That's a terrible idea. Okay? I'm just telling you right now. Terrible idea.
Don't take this advice.
Don't take this advice. Okay? But if you want a good laugh, go to YouTube and Google Joe Biden shotgun song. And you'll have a great time.
It's a good time.
It's a good time. It's only like a minute long. It's
thought it was funny because that's what it made me think about.
So this guy.
This is the original Fire 2 Blast.
Yes.
Yeah.
It started in 1979. He takes this gun, shoots this gun over these people's head, and leaves. Well, as you might be surprised to find out, he gets caught.
He gets arrested. Yeah.
Yeah. He gets arrested. And he gets charged with this. And he ends up, what they say, he gets 4 years probation for this.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, that was my biggest shock. I was like, dude, pulling out a gun.
Yeah.
And even you saying you fired it above their heads.
Well, this is Texas.
I understand that, but
They're probably like, well, who hasn't done that?
I'm just saying, if someone fired a gun above my head, they wouldn't be getting probation.
I would be irate if that was.
So he gets probation. He gets 4 years probation for this.
So this is important to note that a gentleman named Detective Dennis Wheatley.
I'm getting into that.
Okay.
I'm getting into yes. So the detective that
on the grocery store case.
He's the one that he arrests him, and this guy gets charged. And it does say later that this is a felony charge, but he's just getting probation for this felony charge. But I will say, this is the first time this guy has ever been arrested.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is 7 months prior to the gas station robbery in Garland, Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where things get weird. Okay. So now we're back to
back.
This is Michael Scott Martin's background.
Yeah, we got his background. Now we're back to the day of the incident.
Someone robs this place. They steal the attendant's car. His name is Doyle. At 19:15, a police officer finds the car at an apartment complex nearby. That was the words they used.
Yeah.
Nearby the gas station. Okay. And this apartment complex just so happened to be an apartment complex that Michael Scott Martin had lived in, but had moved out a month prior. Okay.
Yeah. Bad luck.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how big this town was.
That's the other thing. I'm not familiar with Garland,
I grew up in a
Texas.
tiny little town of 3,000 people.
Yeah.
I think there was one apartment complex, maybe two. We have 0 where we live now. So that was it. That was my second thought was, what are the chances? But if it was a small community, it might not have been a weird coincidence.
Yeah. So then at 1925, 7:25, this is the part where I'm like,
yeah, this to me is red flag.
supposedly, well, I won't say supposedly. So Detective Wheatley
Claims.
says he's on his motorcycle for a drive.
Yeah.
It doesn't say he's
Doesn't say he's
on
working.
duty.
It seems like it was a personal.
He's trying to turn left at an intersection 3 blocks from the gas station that has just been robbed. And he sees Michael Scott Martin drive through the intersection in his blue Camaro. And he says he looked at him.
Yeah, they had
made
like
eye
an eye contact moment.
And he knew exactly, I know this guy. He said he was so close he could have reached out and smacked him. And
Which
I was like,
was a very interesting. I've never
well, I'm like,
said.
dude, why'd you get so close on a motorcycle? So then Detective Wheatley then asks to be put on the case.
Yeah, so
He asked for this case.
is that? I don't know. So
That's a red flag to me.
yeah,
And
Ben is not a cop, but he is in law enforcement. He's worked cop
Here's the thing.
adjacent to people. That seems like a little bit.
I'm a law enforcement guy. Okay.
Yeah.
I always give law enforcement the benefit of the doubt.
But you're also hypercritical of them as well.
I mean,
You hold them to a very high standard, and you have no
we
problem.
make mistakes. Okay. But this just doesn't make sense. So, because my question is that, well, when I was first watching it, before we get to this point, I'm like, dude, well, how did this guy, because the gas station attendant says, I know exactly what this guy looks like. And supposedly he picks this guy out. Well, now we find out how he picks him out. Wheatley asked to get assigned the case. Then he brings in a bunch of mugshots, one of them being Michael Scott Martin, and asked the attendant to identify him. Identify who.
Did you see the research about what the part of that Unsolved Mysteries left out?
What's that?
So Doyle originally, the very first time the pictures were put before him, he said that none of them were the guy.
No. I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
I thought it wasn't. So I found that later in my research that
Well, because he's adamant. Because they interview him later.
he's adamant after the first time he says none of them look familiar, and him and this detective have an additional conversation.
Saying that, yeah. So he picks out Michael Scott Martin and says, "This is the guy. I know it. He's dead set." And like he says earlier, I would never forget the face of a guy that puts a gun in my face and threatens to kill me.
I think a lot of us give the benefit of the doubt to eyewitness testimony, especially the victim.
Well, we want to believe him, right?
Well, we want
They're
to
a
think if we
victim.
were in that situation, we would hyper remember everything as well. Now we know today how fallible eyewitness testimony actually is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. So what do? They run up and they arrest Michael Scott Martin. Michael Scott Martin is in Lake Worth, Texas, 70 miles away.
Yep.
He's confused
So caught off guard.
because he says, I've been home, like, obviously this was several days later, but he was like, I was home all day that day. I was working on my motorcycle.
And in fact,
So then he was like, yeah, and I got witnesses. 5 different people come forward and say, yeah.
3 of them who hardly knew this man.
Yeah. Well,
This wasn't like wife and 3 children.
There was a guy and a girl who clearly, like,
they were his roommates.
They were his roommates because they didn't say that exactly, but that was the thing. Because this is the best part of the story. Getting sidetracked here. His roommate. Oh, you know where I'm going with this, but don't ruin it for me. Don't ruin it for me.
I won't take it away from you.
Don't, because the gas station has been robbed at 7:00. Well, his roommate says it can't be. It can't be, because at 7:00, I said to Michael Scott, Battlestar Galactica was on, and Bears beats
Battlestar Galactica.
Okay, we're going to pause there. But how did Michael Scott Martin and then Battlestar Galactica both make their way into this story?
Yep.
That was the best part.
I know.
It was awesome.
I know. I thought it was great.
The best part, it would have been awesome if one of the witnesses was named Dwight.
Yeah.
Or
any of the characters. Yeah. Phyllis, anyone. Yeah. Creed would have been the best.
That would have been great. Or Jim. I'd go for Jim.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, I guess
So
that was another option
the
of
2
TV shows
roommates-
you could have watched back in this time was
Well, Unsolved Mysteries wasn't on yet.
Battlestar Galactica.
So Battlestar Galactica was on, and he's like,
at
hey, man.
7:00, and they were excited for this episode.
They were excited to watch Battlestar Galactica. So he yells at Michael Scott Martin, hey, man, Battlestar Galactica's on. And he comes in, and they watch the show together.
Yep.
But then you also have the neighbor who doesn't have a relationship with this guy. Says, yeah, I know I left the house at 6:00 and I walked out and I saw him, said hello. And he's like, and he even says, I'm not sure what he was doing. I think he was working on his motorcycle, but I don't know exactly what he was doing. But I saw him and said hello and I left.
Yeah.
And he's like, and so his logic, and I think everyone else's logic, is how can you be 70 miles away at 6:00 and commit a robbery, 70 miles away in an hour?
Yeah.
You drive that way. And there was the same with like another person said that, I saw him out there. I saw him at like 6. He even said, I think
there
it
was
was
3 additional
he said, I think I saw him at 6 or
community
6:30.
members who saw him.
Who saw him out there.
Yeah, between like 4 and 6:30 or something.
Yeah. And they all said, yeah, we saw this guy at this time frame or close to making it impossible for him to go and that. So the trial comes, And literally the only thing the prosecution has to go on is the eyewitness testimony.
Mm-hmm.
He testifies, he swears it. Supposedly,
the police officer, the sergeant, he was the second witness.
Yeah, because supposedly he saw.
So detective on the case is also.
Yeah, he testified that he saw him three blocks away, 25 minutes later in the area at this intersection. So supposedly the defense brings forth these 5 witnesses who all say, no, he was over here 70 miles away.
Yeah.
The jury takes 15 minutes, and because
I know.
because he was on probation for a felony, he then gets life in prison.
Life for a $400 robbery.
Yeah. He's eligible for parole in 20 years, but he gets life.
That's
the crazy part. And that was the thing is.
It's such a heavy conviction on. I mean, our last case was complaining that all they had was circumstantial evidence. This didn't even have circumstantial evidence. This only had eyewitness.
Because they even said they were interviewing the prosecutor, and he even literally says, "Yeah, I have doubts about this one." He's the one. He says there was no fingerprints in the car that was stolen.
I've never heard a prosecutor in all of my time listening to true crime that has ever said, "We might have gotten this one wrong."
But he literally was like, yeah, but what are you going to do?
He said, ultimately, my job is to turn this over to a jury.
But he's kind of like, yeah, well, what are you going to do? Like, we brought the case forward.
Yeah, he said you have to kind of put it into the jury's hands. That's technically what our entire system is based upon. Yeah.
But there's no prints in the car. The money is never recovered. And the gun's never recovered.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, not like you have to recover that to make a case, but at the end of the day, you're like, you didn't have anything tying this guy except for an eyewitness testimony, which, I mean, I don't blame the guy.
Well, whether the cop, the police officer, the sergeant, whatever he was, believes he saw him or not, we know that there was no way he actually did.
According to eyewitness testimony.
According to the
But
other
I mean,
5.
at the end of the day, this is your case of, you have one person saying, no, this is what I saw. And then other people saying, no, this is what I saw. So, I mean, really, there's reason to believe both. But I mean, obviously, like,
I think people naturally, good people want to believe the victim.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. The victim thinks he said he saw what he saw. Absolutely. And obviously I'm not there. But then you also have strangers who really have no skin in the game, at least from how it was presented, saying, no. And they give the guy an alibi. So there's a lot of this case that doesn't make sense. So he appeals, he loses like crazy, but he does get released in 1999, but the guy does 20 years.
Yeah, he didn't get released. He got released on parole, and he's on parole for the rest of his life.
I know. And so I tried to dig in, like, where is he now? Has he passed away?
So I did find some things. Did you find anything?
I couldn't find anything.
So I will say, full disclosure, this came from a random reader board.
Okay.
Okay.
I did see one of those, but I didn't start going down that path.
Yeah. So there was a reader board or a message board of some sort that was people trying to get recordings. And I'm guessing this is back before, obviously, streaming services. This website was super, super old. There was a gentleman on a reader board asking if anybody had a copy, a digital copy or a recording of this episode of Unsolved Mysteries, because he was the step nephew to Michael.
Okay.
So he shared that when Michael was paroled, he had met his aunt and that they had gotten married. And so that he was the nephew. So Michael was his uncle.
Okay.
And that Michael wasn't able to have children with his bride, this gentleman's aunt. He didn't give any information as far as dates or locations or anything, but just that Michael was doing very well. He had married this kid's aunt who had had a daughter from a previous relationship, and that they got along very, very well. He was an amazing stepdad to this 20-something-year-old girl who she went on to have a child, and he was thriving, getting to be able to participate as a grandparent in this little child's life.
Oh, okay.
So I will say it was kind of like I didn't find it suspicious because he wasn't like asking for anything or like, I mean, he was just seeing if anyone had a copy of this because they had found out that this man's case was on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, and they were curious to try to get a copy of it for them to have within their kind of family since they knew him. They believed that he was innocent, and that it seemed like a lot of people really believed that he did not commit this crime, and that he was at least living a life where he was married and was enjoying being a grandpa.
Yeah. I don't know.
So that's what I could find. Personally, I think he's innocent.
I don't know.
You don't know, really.
Well, I'm not saying one or the other. I think there's reason to believe both.
I think after finding out that the detective made him look at the...
Yeah, that does change things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Here's the thing. I mean, this is just me being like, not jumping to any conclusions. But yeah, I mean, if someone twisted my arm and said, give me an answer, I would say, yeah, I think the guy's innocent.
Yeah.
That's my own personal thought.
I definitely don't think there was enough to convict him because the burden of proof is technically on the state.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like that your only thing is an eyewitness, and that's not a knock on the eyewitness. But here's the thing: I do have the one real big issue I have is the police officer saying he saw this guy at this point, and he's adamant because I could have reached over and smacked him, and then to come in and say, I want this case.
Yeah.
And then, because then you're saying you want this case because you only want to go one direction with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You think you already have it figured out and solved, and that's the direction you're taking the case. That's the problem I have with it.
That is a thing in law enforcement. And I've heard other law enforcement people talk about you have to be very, very careful to be open to lots of different options when you're investigating a case and not right off the jump be one way and making everything else fit that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, as human beings, it's easy to do that, but like you have to, yeah, I don't know. I just think that's the biggest issue I have on this. And here's the thing. As a police officer, I'm not saying me as a police officer. I'm saying if you're the police officer on this case and you think it's this guy and your eyewitness says that's the guy, but you also have 5 people giving this guy an alibi, then your responsibility is to dig deeper. If you think it's him and that they're lying about his alibi, then you really need to be looking at other avenues to make your case.
Yeah, and it was hard for me that this detective was the head detective on the case, was also an eyewitness, and was also the one conducting the interviews.
Well, and he was the detective on his previous case.
That seems, and I don't know where conflict of interest comes in the world of law enforcement.
But it would be one thing if clearly, like, his first case that was dumped on his lap, right? And he goes and he solves the case. He gets the guy. I mean, he arrests the guy, and the guy
confesses,
pleads guilty. And if you walked into work and you're like, "Hey, man, I got this for you," and you're like, and that one gets dumped on your thing too, and it just happens to be the same guy. Like, it's not uncommon for a police officer to arrest the same person for multiple different crimes.
No, and if he had opened up the case file and said, I saw him last night.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So there's a lot of that it kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah,
I
agree. 17-year-old Kirk McFall lived with his father, Tom McFall, in Concord, California. On Saturday, September 8th, 1984, he left his home and drove across the Bay Bridge into San Francisco. He planned on spending the night with Gabriel.
Carrillo.
What?
Carrillo,
yeah. And I put in here that he was 36. Unsolved Mysteries failed to mention once again.
But you might have put his age. Do you know what I put in parentheses next to his name? Weirdo adult.
Yeah.
That's what I put, because that's what this guy is. 100%.
100%. Okay. And was planning on returning home Sunday evening. He never came home Sunday evening. And in fact, Monday morning, September 10th, two men were out bird watching in the San Francisco Bay and discovered Kirk's body. He was half naked, so he just had his jeans on. He didn't have a shirt. Tom Kirk's father is deeply convinced at the top of this episode that his son's death was not accidental. And this is all stemmed from a phone call that he had had with one of Kirk's friends after Kirk's death, who told Tom that Kirk had mentioned to his friend that he had started dabbling in a satanic cult that was involved with black magic. He said that the members were trying to control him. Kirk told his friend that he was in over his head and had wanted to leave the cult. However, he was afraid that the members of the cult would come after him and kill him if he tried to leave, and told his friends that if anything should happen to him, he should tell the police about these cult leaders. Okay.
Is this not the plot
of season, what, 4?
No, not even that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But does this not sound like the plot of some 80s movie?
Yeah. Well, so the 80s was the rise of this satanic panic. For all of our true crime enthusiasts, understand that.
Well, I know that.
Okay.
From Stranger Things.
Yes, you know that from Stranger Things, because I think it stemmed a conversation between us that, oh, this is in reference to all of the false arrests and all kinds of crazy things that happened during this time frame. So after the phone call, though, Tom searched Kirk's bedroom. Tom discovered a black leather bag that contained a knife made with a deer hoof, a necklace out of stone and feathers, and a candle.
I mean, this is a movie.
I know. He also found books on the occult and drawings of witchcraft and violent fantasy.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is happening in the reenactment of this TV show. And my heart is breaking for this man who's lost his son, who goes into his kid's room and finds this. I think even without the, satanic panic that was going on at the time, it's a disturbing thing to find in your child's room, let alone that if this phone call happened and then to find that, I can see where the father decided that he really needed to be vocal about this.
Oh, yeah, I'm with the dad on this. Like, let's be vocal. Like, yeah. Let's raise your concerns.
I wish he would have raised concerns about his son staying the night with a 30-year-old.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. Yep. His son's death, I can totally understand. Like, let's raise some concerns. Mm-hmm. Let's, don't just whatever you're told, take it. Because there's a lot of things in this whole thing that.
Yeah, that are concerning. Because in the world of true crime, there are a lot of cases where sadly people love to make phone calls to victims' families and to say crazy things. So,
Yeah,
but for this phone call to then connect with some sort of piece of physical evidence, that would have, I understand how this got to the point where it did. Then we kind of get a little backstory here. Unsolved Mysteries lets us know that Kirk had started playing the game Dungeons and Dragons a few years earlier, and that this was the beginning of a voyage into a subculture that would dominate him. Kirk also joined the Society for Creative Anarchism. You guys,
I just wrote it as SCA.
that's probably what I should have done.
That's what it was.
SCA.
But yeah, I mean, people probably want to know what that stands for, but it was, yeah, I mean, this kind of seemed, I didn't have issues with this. This kind of just seemed like a club of kids that liked, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead and explain what that was.
Yeah, for the record, I don't think that Dungeons and Dragons makes people bad. Just like I think our kind of culture.
Unless you get caught up in the upside down.
Exactly. I think the only thing we have kind of close to this is, remember when Harry Potter was like, if you were reading Harry Potter or you were into it, you were somehow into like black magic.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing Dungeons and Dragons was the thing at the time to kind of, growing up, Dungeons and Dragons was just what some of the groups of boys did at our school that they just did it in the courtyard at school, and I mean,
Dustin was over there playing Dungeons and Dragons with Will Byers, you know. I mean, it was just
it was just there definitely was a group of boys in my high school that played Dungeons and Dragons in the courtyard at lunch. I don't remember a lot of females partaking in this. I don't think they spent a lot of time with girls.
But in this show,
this Kirk guy is a good-looking guy.
Yeah, but in this show, when they because they interview someone from this SCA group.
Yeah.
Okay,
so the SCA is not actually associated with Dungeons and Dragons. SCA is now basically, this was like original cosplay.
Yeah, there's two separate things.
Yeah, there's two separate things. He played Dungeons and Dragons, which kind of started opening his ideas to this like knights and battles and stuff like that. He found this group and they got together once a week and practiced jousting, sword fights, and kind of acting out this medieval behavior. I loved that it was in a subway parking lot.
Yeah. No, I thought it was cool. I mean, at the end of the day, it was literally just a group of kids that got together, liked medieval stuff. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this isn't much different than old guys that dress up and reenact Civil War battles.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, it's the same
Kirk
thing.
Built his own armor.
Yeah, absolutely. But this group was just the gateway, though. I mean, but this group still had nothing to do with the weirdo he stayed the night at.
No, somehow the Dungeons and Dragons kind of led to joining the society, and then these medieval rituals kind of opened him up to this pagan group. Yeah. So Kirk studied the FERI. It's FERI. I looked it up.
Okay.
FERI tradition, which is a pagan religion.
Yeah.
And the main person kind of practicing and teaching this pagan religion was Gabriel.
Okay.
But
what was his code?
I didn't write down his Celtic name because I don't think he deserved to like
his code name,
his witch name or his pagan name was.
Caradoc or something.
Yeah.
I wrote it down as CARADOC.
Yeah, Caradoc. Yeah.
But that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, they also didn't go into explanation of what the meaning of that was.
And why he had this name.
So
But he gets interviewed.
What Unsolved Mysteries failed to do was inform us about this section of pagan religion. So pagan religion is almost like, I mean, you could say Christian, but that could be a huge, right? There's lots of subcategories inside Christianity. Same thing, I did some research with paganism. There's all these different kinds of practices that you could be in under that umbrella. So if anyone hears fireworks for some reason in the
Someone's
background,
setting them off.
happy July 3rd. We only know it's July 3rd because we've got neighbors who love to set off fireworks. So I did a little bit of research on this subgroup just because I think it is important to understand. So according to Wikipedia, that's as far as I went on this. This tradition is an American-based form of paganism. It's related to neo-pagan witchcraft. It was founded in the West Coast of the United States sometime between the 1950s and 60s by Victor Henry Anderson and his wife. Okay, so this group has been described as an ecstatic tradition. The strong emphasis of this is placed on sensual experiences and awareness, including sexual mysticism, which is not limited to the heterosexual expressions of love. Okay?
That's a lot.
I felt like this was important because we have a teenage boy in a group being led by a 30-something-year-old man.
So that's the part that I hate.
I'm struggling with the unsolved mysteries that they left this up because we grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I knew people that considered themselves part of a pagan religion. They basically worship like Mother Earth and the trees, and they forage and they do all of these things. This seems like a very different thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's funny. Not funny. I think it's crazy that this is now 2 stories on just this one episode.
Yeah.
Where there is not just a little kind of weird relationship with an adult and a teenager, but like super weird and like super inappropriate and red flags everywhere. And Unsolved Mysteries literally says it like it ain't no thing. They don't even like
they don't
bring
even
it up
mention
as a
it that he's
concern.
going to have a slumber party, and that the last person who saw him alive is a 36-year-old man.
That's what I mean. This guy is a full-grown adult, but he's running some, according to Unsolved Mysteries, and this is their words, not mine, a cult.
Yeah.
They call it a cult multiple times in the episode. Okay, I'm not saying I don't know anything about it, but you've got this guy running a cult, supposedly recruiting teenagers, and then letting teenagers stay the night at his house.
Yeah.
Like,
so we can. So we in Unsolved Mysteries. Then it starts to go back to the night of the last night. So on September 8th, Kirk left his house. He drives to San Francisco to stay the night with this gentleman. They have dinner, and this is all according to the guy that's still alive.
Him. Yeah, I mean, he's interviewed.
Yeah. Caradoc is still alive. He is the last known person to see this boy. And this is all according to him.
And he even acknowledges he's the last person to see him alive.
Yeah. So according to him, they have dinner, they go to a movie, and around midnight. Now, mind you, this is September in San Francisco. Kirk decides to go swimming. He goes, like, we'll get to it. So he decides he goes swimming. Later, they're back at the house, according to Caradoc. that Kirk was restless and couldn't sleep, knocked on his door around 3 a.m, said it was too hot inside.
Yeah.
In September in San Francisco. And that he was going to go back to the beach, took a blanket.
He was going outside. Yeah.
No one ever saw this kid again.
And that was the last thing anyone knows about this guy.
Okay. So that's all Unsolved Mysteries tells us. Kirk's car was discovered the following day, abandoned, had some cash in it, some beer bottles, his ID, and the keys were all inside the car. However, his sword and his main prized possession was his handmade suit of armor were gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there was a bunch of empty beer bottles in and around the car.
Yeah.
But the autopsy report showed that he didn't have any alcohol or drugs in his system.
Yeah.
So, this, again, according to Kirk's father, he believes that this was staged.
Okay.
Because, one, he said his son doesn't drink beer. I mean, I don't think his father knew a lot about what he was doing, so that wasn't actually the reason I would have discredited it. But the fact is that this car was found that belonged to Kirk with beer in it, but then he didn't have any in his system. So that does seem weird to me. Those two things don't connect.
I agree.
Yeah. So the San Francisco Police Department investigated Kirk's death, found no evidence to classify this as a homicide, and the case remains open.
But they did classify it as unknown.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even classify it as an accidental death.
Yeah.
The father says, I mean, according to him, he says he talked to the coroner or the medical examiner.
Yeah, he talks to the medical examiner basically off the record.
And he says, I think it's a homicide, but I don't have enough to really classify it as that.
Yeah.
But he does classify it.
So there was some weird things on the body. One, he was found by the water. He was wet, but he didn't drown. He didn't have water in his lungs. They didn't classify his death as a drowning.
Yeah, and he had
He had all these abrasions and stuff, but he had a blood loss, but they couldn't figure out.
That was the
weird part. Yeah.
Is he died from trauma and blood loss.
Mm-hmm. But they could not determine. There was not blood on the scene.
Well, yeah, but they think his body washed up.
Yes.
So I don't know. It was weird the manner that he died.
Mm-hmm.
But to the point, clearly, like the manner of he died, the manner that he died.
The manner of death, yeah. Caused everyone to pause.
Well, and it even caused them to say this wasn't accidental, like, because he was found near cliffs by this golf course. But
had also supposedly possibly washed up.
Yeah, but by this golf course.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it could have been easy to classify it as, hey, he fell and drowned, or he fell off.
Yeah,
it's the middle of the night. He slipped. He fell. Head injury, died from this. But they didn't even classify it as an accidental death or a fall or a drowning. It just was unknown.
Yeah.
That was weird.
So the case remains open. And to this, at that point, there are no suspects.
Yeah. So I will say one of the things that I actually.
This is actually, I think, our first
real mystery. Yeah, this is a mystery. I will give them that. I actually agreed. So I agreed with the assessment on the car because they find this car near the golf course, which then they say he fell off a cliff, or he was found not too far from the golf course. Right.
Yeah.
Down some rocks by the ocean.
A pretty big fall. Like if he had wandered off of that, was intoxicated and wandered off that cliff edge, he likely would have not survived.
Yeah. So for the car to just be there, okay, the keys were in it. They were on the seat. His driver's license was left in the car.
Mm-hmm.
What was in the glove box?
He had cash.
Yeah, that's right. There's cash in the
He
glove
had 20
box.
bucks, which in the 80s? I mean, 20 bucks, that was a big bill to have.
Yeah, that's like $50 now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I forgot to do adjusted.
I'm doing my just normal inflation calculator in my head.
According to Ben, yeah.
Okay. So cash in the car, driver's license there,
Mm-hmm.
keys on the seat, and then to just scatter beer bottles around the car.
It looks very staged.
The way they described it.
Mm-hmm. And the reenactment.
And here's the thing. Obviously, it's a show, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they're describing it in a way that they want you to believe it's staged. But the way they described it, before they even said it, I was like, poof, man, I was like, that's an 80s job staging.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, no one would do that nowadays because we've all watched Unsolved Mysteries and Dateline and 2020 growing up. So we know, yeah. But like, you literally, like, to me, you left the keys there.
Mm-hmm.
And then you left his driver's license just so that people would know. And then you scatter the beer bottles because you want people to think
that he got drunk.
He got drunk here and wandered off and fell off a
cliff. Yeah.
But I will say this. That's all you got.
I do wish the police had actually done what I think most police do now. Like, the last person that saw this guy alive needs to be suspect number one.
He should have been questioned pretty darn hard.
Yeah.
Like, we got to have some long conversations.
We have to find evidence to back up that you're saying that this person decided at 3 a.m. that the apartment in San Francisco in September was too warm. I also question that after a movie and dinner, this kid decides, you know what sounds great? A swim in the San Francisco Bay. That water had to be in the 40s.
I don't know.
That doesn't make
there.
any sense. It's freezing there.
Well, but here's the thing. Even I'm going back to if the medical examiner, they can't even figure out how he died.
Mm-hmm.
Why are the police not dragging this guy's butt in and be like,
we're going to need to see some receipts.
Yeah. We're going to have to, like, we don't even know how he died or how.
We don't even know if they fingerprinted the car.
No.
Or the beer bottles. Nothing. They don't talk about that at all.
I'm just saying right now, in 2024,
yeah,
if a police officer, a detective walked up to a car and it looked the way that they described it in this show, he'd go, okay, who's our suspect number one?
Yeah.
like this is not normal, you know? And obviously I get it. It's 1984 to them that, I don't know. I wasn't a police officer back in the 80s, but I'm just saying, like, and then and like I said, I thought what was super weird was the massive blood loss.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah,
he didn't die of blunt force trauma.
No, they at least
which would have been consistent with falling down a cliff.
Yeah, they just said he had like abrasions and bruises, which that might be consistent with.
They said it was on his back. He had a braid.
There's so much about
all the
this.
injuries were on his back, which I'm like, okay, so if he drowned, that would make sense because the coastline of San Francisco Bay is super rocky.
Yeah.
But he didn't drown.
I don't know. It's a mystery.
It is. It's a mystery. And unfortunately, it is still unsolved. There have been no updates, no suspects, no nothing.
The police really haven't dived into this one.
They have not dived into it. And the gentleman who hosted teenage boy slumber parties died January 1st, 2007 due to an AIDS-related illness.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's I would love to know how long his criminal history is after that. Like,
so I looked.
Okay.
I actually found his obituary.
Okay.
It doesn't say much that he had any sort of criminal past, but he continued to be involved with children.
Shocking.
Yeah. He did all kinds of things inside mainly the LGBTQ community in San Francisco with children. And I shouldn't say like children as in like young. He seemed to be heavily involved with teaching and educating and helping teenage-aged kids. So I don't think we'll ever solve this mystery. I can speculate about who suspect number one should have at least. I don't feel like...
I mean, someone should have.
I will say this. I do not think that there was enough evidence to not have this guy be a person of interest. The fact that he was never even named a person of interest to me is a big mishap from the police officers involved in this case.
Well, they did say that the police were unwilling to give it an interview.
Yeah.
So we don't know. We technically don't know any steps.
Well,
that
since
the
this
police
is still remains open, you cannot get access to any of the files on this.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that the police weren't interviewed for this. No one was interviewed. So
unless they know something that we don't know about this gentleman,
we don't know the steps that they did take to investigate it. Mm-hmm. Maybe they did, and there just wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we don't.
I have my eye on a suspect on this one, and I'm sure if anyone else listening to this, that they can probably draw the same conclusions that we can, but that's for everybody to determine on their own. Okay, so this is where we wrap up with the last thing that...
With our feel-good.
Yeah, this is our feel-good moment that is not a mystery.
Not a mystery.
It's not unsolved. It actually is not even related to true crime or crime or law enforcement.
No.
I would say this is extreme law enforcement adjacent because it deals with the post service.
Yeah.
That's as close to the
So all right.
Yeah. So you can give us a quick rundown of this.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on this, but February 4th, 1986, Mike Minguez, he's actually
an exterminator.
Exterminator, yeah. He's spraying a house in North Carolina for an elderly woman, and he's in the attic, and he notices there's a duffel bag full of mail, and he sees I
think he was a little snoopy, if you want my honest opinion.
I agree. I was like, wow, he really
he's like, it was open and there was letters spilling out.
Yeah, I'm like, maybe not, or you were just kind of snooping.
Yeah,
I thought the same thing. I was like, no, dude, you were looking through her stuff.
You were snooping.
Yeah, so he finds this duffel bag full of letters from V-Mail, from the V-Mail service, which is the mail service during World War II. So
I'm going to be honest, the entire time I was watching Unsolved Mysteries, I thought they said female.
No, V, as in the letter V.
And so
V for Victor.
I did some wild Google searches.
Don't. This is why you got to watch it with the subtitles on.
I have dyslexia, so watching a show with the subtitles.
But you don't have to watch the actual what's going on in the show.
It gives me I can't focus on the letters. They start to get all scrambled. That's another deep dive for another day. But yeah, I found the transcript, and I've realized very quickly why my internet searches of female was not working, but V as in Victor.
Victor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so V-Mail, it was the mail service from World War II.
Did you know that this was a thing in World War II?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
And I do.
Ben is a history buff.
I do love World War II
and you
stuff.
love World War II stuff.
I've read a lot of books on World War II.
What do you think happened the moment they said that this was something from World War II?
I thought this is why Sierra gave me story 4.
I literally was like, okay.
I was like, this is why Sierra said you can recap story 4. And I was like, okay.
Okay, I expected you to give us like a whole backstory about V-Mail, but okay, never mind.
No.
But it was just a free mail service specifically for servicemen and women.
Yeah, it was just how they.
But it cost them nothing. They could send letters back and forth through this service.
It was just a way for the service members to send letters to.
Because that was the only form of communication.
their family members.
And it was free for servicemen and women and their families.
Yeah. So it turns out this guy sees this and he's like, what's going on? He asks the lady about it. It kind of gets weird. Somehow he presses this lady and she ends up giving him the letters.
Well, I thought it was fake because this is typical, like, old South where we never talk about, like, anything. So her nephew had been a crew member.
That's what I'm getting
Okay.
at. So, yeah, her nephew was, I wrote this down.
Crew member aboard SS Caleb Strong.
Yeah. And they're sailing to Africa in 1944.
Okay.
And on the way there, all these crew guys, like a bunch of them, are writing letters to their loved ones. And he says, they stuff him in the duffel bag, and he says, hey, when I get back to the States.
Yeah, he must have been going back to the mainland before other people.
So they don't explain that, shocking. But he says, when I get back to the States, I'll send all these letters back. Well, he forgot. And then he just felt guilty, and he hid these letters up in this attic.
He hides them in his aunt's attic, but also lets her know that they're, like, hidden up there.
So clearly she knows, and she feels guilty about it. So
she was embarrassed. That's what she said. She was embarrassed to do anything about it.
So here's all these letters. So she gives it to him.
In fact, she makes this gentleman, this exterminator, swear. He pinky promised
that he won't tell.
To this day, we don't know who actually this lady is. Yeah.
And that's fair.
Fair.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying
I just think it's like this sweet old Southern woman. And like that is to me, like, you definitely like.
I mean, I guess, is it better that these letters make it back and we don't know who to point the finger
absolutely.
at? 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too bad. This should have never happened.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It happened. Let's try to solve it.
Let's see what we can do about it.
So he ends up, I guess, so they don't say this and that, but I was reading about it. He tried to like find these people
himself.
On his own because he didn't want to get her in trouble. He didn't want to get the government involved.
So I didn't actually know about this. He was concerned that the U.S. Postal Service would dump these letters
I read that.
In the dead, what was it called?
Dead mail thing.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Just they would never find their way. Mm-hmm. So, but he can't find people. He's not having luck doing this stuff, obviously. Because now, I mean, this is in 1986. So it's 40 plus years.
Yeah, we're 40 years later, yeah.
Technically, 42 years past when these letters were written. And he's not having any luck. Mm-hmm. So he does contact the Postal Service. Well, the Postal Service does a good job. Yeah. He went to the Postal Service in North Carolina originally. And they were like, you know what? This is a big deal.
It got expedited all the way up to...
So they contacted Washington, D.C., brought in, what was her name? I wrote her name down. Meg Harris. Mm-hmm. And she came to him and she goes, I promise you, we won't get rid of these. We are going to do everything that we can to get these letters to the people that
where they're intended to have. Yeah.
So what they did is they kind of backtracked. Instead of finding the people, they found the service members. Mm-hmm. And then they tracked them from there. Yeah. So it was to 100, I guess they said, so it was from 92 different people. 92
different
service members.
Yes. Soldiers upon.
So they tracked these 92 guys. Mm-hmm. And they found, at the time of this, they had found 89.
All but three.
Mm-hmm. Service members, and then gotten these letters to their family members. Mm-hmm. And then I will say, Unsolved Mysteries does a good job. They interview two people. You get
these really cute Hallmark card moments of these wives.
Especially because that one, the first lady, they interview her.
They lived together for a year. They were married for
2.5 years.
2.5 years, and she never
remarried.
Mm-hmm.
She never remarried. And that letter was the last letter he'd ever written her.
I will say, she read the letter out loud. It
was beautiful.
For the record, I'm obsessed with my husband. I think he's perfect in so many ways. But man, oh man, men these days do not
They don't
write.
Talk to ladies like they
the
did back
way
then.
that these letters were written to these women that they loved.
They're beautiful.
They were. I was like stunned.
Oh, they're beautifully
The
written.
elegant way that they spoke to these women in these letters was just beautiful.
Yeah. So, I mean, she reads that last letter.
Mm-hmm.
He flew in a bomber and he was shot down
Mm-hmm.
and died.
Yeah.
And that was the last letter he'd ever written.
Yeah.
her.
So that's kind of your sad, but also feel good.
But
Get these
she
little things.
now has this letter.
Mm-hmm.
She loves her husband and has never remarried.
Yeah. Said that was the best 2.5 years of her whole life.
Yeah, she says that those 2.5 years were worth her entire life. That's what
Yeah.
she says. And I mean, and the same thing, they did another lady, kind of same thing. He had passed away. He died in combat and he'd written her a letter. So yeah, those are your feel good. I did some research. Every letter has been given to some type of family member.
So I told you at the beginning that I had thought of a way to end the podcast each week.
Can't wait.
I know. I'm excited to tell you this. So we're known as the mystery couple.
Are we?
We are. So
Okay.
we've talked about our mysteries.
Oh.
But how do we bring in the couple element to it? I had an idea.
We kiss
We can.
for everyone to see, which they can't see.
They can't see.
But that's the mystery.
No. So I actually thought we could answer one of the questions from the Newlywed Game.
Oh, dear.
And see, we've been married, going on 17 years?
I don't know. You tell me. See, let me explain this, why I say that way. I'm the one that knows in this marriage. So, sidebar, 2 years ago, when we were hitting we were hitting what? It was a year ago when we were hitting a 16.
Mm-hmm.
No, we were coming up on 15.
Mm-hmm.
I had Sierra convinced we were coming up on 16. She had no idea. It took her forever to figure out. You never know. You never know. Every year, she has no idea what year
Can't remember
we're hitting.
usually how old I'm turning.
No, I think I had you convinced. I didn't have you convinced. You were convinced you were turning 37, and I had to break it to her that she was turning 38. And she was not happy with me. But I have to tell her every year what year we are at in our marriage. So yes, we're coming up on 17.
17 years. So I thought it would be fun if we answered one of the newlywed questions.
Okay, I'm ready.
So I'm going to try harder. I wanted to get some questions from the original show because some of the questions are unhinged, but I think I need to go back and watch some of them because there wasn't a lot. I couldn't find a list from the original
now
show.
You're going to want to do a podcast on recapping the Newlywed King.
Where are those couples now?
Where are they now?
How many of them that did well
How many
survived?
made it? How
Okay.
many kids do they have?
So remember the question is we ask it, but we answer it
For each other.
for each other. Okay? What is your spouse's perfect date night?
Perfect date night?
Mm-hmm. What do you think would be my perfect date night?
Well, you have multiple. It just depends on the mood.
Ben, tell us what it's like being married to a woman with ADHD, please.
So, if you're in the mood of, I don't want to go out, we're just going to have good food. We're going to find a good movie and chill or hang out in the hot tub.
Mm-hmm.
But if she's feeling frisky, she wants to get dressed up, have good food, and then go country dancing.
Yeah. Those are you're spot on.
But, so the common denominator is good food.
There needs to be good food.
Good food.
Good food can get me probably just about any location. All right. That is our episode, and we hope to see you guys all again next week. Bye.